Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Painters Motivating Painters review video for January 2024. If you're not familiar with Painters Motivating Painters, we're a Facebook group where people share feedback and tips and tricks about miniature painting and the hobby, all with a goal to kind of have a positive atmosphere and help people take that next step in their hobby journey. As part of that, every month we do a video review here on YouTube where people can post works with a goal to, working on a particular element of painting, and we give feedback to try and, help everyone along with that. So this month, not a huge amount of entries, but boy, do they make up for it in terms of quality. So we're definitely going to have plenty to talk about. First off, we've got Powell Rosinski, who was who's last month did that Athena bust, which was so amazing. And this time it's very different. It's three little dwarves, which are really cool, all on one base. So yeah, you had saying you had trouble with the photos, Powell. So I think probably, yeah, you can't really get, when you have three guys on one base like this, you get a problem where you can't get them all in focus at once. So what you can do then is if you move your camera back, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, but the further you move it back, the longer your depth of field, it's called, where the area where it's in focus. Because if something's like really close to your face, it's either really well in focus or it goes out of focus really quickly. So if you have like a really good camera, you can take a photo from further away and then crop in. There is also a way you can use Photoshop to do like image combining images. If you look up Miniac has a video on that, if you know how to use Photoshop and or cameras. And basically you take a bunch of photos at different focal lengths and then you like paste them together. I think you could probably just do the trick and move back for these guys because it's not a huge gap between them. But I totally understand how this is annoying. I have some goblins on this kind of base, and it's the same thing. You just can't. It's very much more difficult to get decent photos of all three of them. But yeah, anyway, we definitely have good enough photos to work with. I really love the I don't know if these guys are meant to come together like this, but it's a really cool piece with the three different guys. They're all kind of facing the same way, and it looks like one kind of singular unit. But they've all got their own kind of like personality and color scheme with unifying elements. So I think that's really good. So you're asking about texture, and I think I quite like the texture you've got on a lot of the metals. You've got this really kind of scratchy, well-worn look on like the axe and the sword blade. Makes them look kind of sharp and like they're sort of practical and rather than being perfectly polished. I think that's really nice and it's more interesting and definitely helps with the whole anime look to it. As well, I thought that on the hair, I think the hair, I really like the hair on the guy with the kind of like red hair. I think the blonde hair is probably the best. I think on the orange one, it's not quite as good. It's still quite good, but there's like kind of you've got the highlights, and it's quite a sudden transition from this kind of blonde color to this red orange color. So I think you could just like extend some of the lines through like the areas of the mustache, and then do like finer ones of like a blonde highlight because it looks like you're going for it's kind of a tricky hair color where it's like strawberry blonde, and you just kind of fall in between the cracks where it's highlighted. It's hard to get the texture to work and the highlight areas to work. So it's still really good, but it's not quite as good as the blonde hair. I think the blonde is really good. The way you've got like the volumetric highlight and you have the individual strands being picked out. Also, the crow looks cool. I really love, yeah, just in general, I forgot to say, like, I love how you've got this kind of blue gray unifying color that's in like all the metals and a lot of other elements, which ties everything together really nicely. The wood, you've got a couple of different kinds of wood going on. I think it's most successful the wood grain on the hafts of the weapons, like the axe handles. On the guy with the barrel, it looks a bit weird. It looks like it sort of looks like the edges are worn, but then you've got a lot of lines that are on the barrel that I don't know if they're meant to be like texture or like markings or something, but they're quite chunky and they don't look quite in keeping with the rest of it. So that's like I'm not 100% sure if that's meant to be like a label painted on or if you're going for a kind of a wood grain in a very pale color there. But if you are going for the wood grain, I'd make them much like smaller and maybe add a little bit of a yellowish or brownish tone to it because it's quite a sudden kind of jump in the hue. And then Yeah, the texture on the clothes is really nice. It's just really adds a lot of kind of like interest to it, and the different kind of we've done it slightly differently on like the bedroll versus like the cape is a nice touch as well. And also, this is an aside, but like the interference colors on the metals is a nice touch as well, which is it's not texture, but it's still I like it. Um, and then the last thing I was going to say was, oh yeah, the stones. I really like the way you've done like it's kind of like this warm color, and then it fades into a brown, and then into a very cold, dark color that gives a really nice sense of like light and shadow, which I think was also one of your pointers that you were asking about. Um, so yeah, I think they're a really cool group and very impressed considering like how tiny they are and the amount of detail you put into each individual guy to make this kind of like super condensed, almost mini diorama piece. So, Jim, do you want to add anything on there?
Yeah, sure. It's an immense little diorama, isn't it? Like considering as you just said, the size of it. I think you've done a stunning job of rendering these guys. They've got awesome contrast in them, really good highlights. The textures, like Matt said, like especially this one on the cape around the back here, that reminds me of, I think it was Jose Da Vinci, who did this. Like hyper tiny little lines and building it up so gradually. Like you've executed this beautifully. Same with the backpack as well. It can't. I wasn't sure whether this was like a leather or it was like a what's it called, like a suede effect, or just like very short fine hair that's been made out of a pelt. But um, it looks awesome. But one thing I was going to say, like with the textures, like going back to the barrel, I'd maybe just try and differentiate like the tones between the wood and the leather a little bit more. Some of them stand out a bit better um, than others, but I think this strap, this was what I'm looking for. This leather strap here, I think that's a better tone of leather. It just sells better rather than the dark one that's round here. It's just a bit close to the wood and it doesn't really separate very well on the Mini. So just watch out for that. I think this is ha or ha, just like scribed into the barrel. That was fun. I don't know whether you freehanded that or it's sculpted, but either way, it's cool. Great work with the tattoos as well. There's a very small and hard to do, so that's wicked. I'm really enjoying the way you've got kind of different skin tones on each of the guys as well. So that's really nice how you've differentiated in that way too. I did think that you could maybe get a little bit more hue into the hands. So like there's plenty of color in them, but I just think the way that they travel, and it looks like there's like maybe some scars that could have been picked out. That'd be cool, like deeper lines between the fingers. This guy's an unfortunate molding. That just looks like a foot, like the one that's cradling the axe here. It just kind of looks like a weird foot, but like you can see like the level of detail, like the separation around that. So there's actually better tonality in this like foot shaped hand, rather than this guy that's holding the shield, if that makes sense. And this one here, who's like pricking himself on the edge of his axe. Lovely little detail as well. They're putting that little bit of blood on there. That's really cool. So yeah, awesome textures, as I said already, and tremendous work on the base as well. So yeah, for this scale, there's really not a lot else to criticize. It looks really great. So well done, Powell. Awesome stuff. Just wait for Facebook to load now. It's probably kicked me right back to the top. Yes, it has. Why wouldn't it? Scrolling down to Alexis Bonner. Nice experience working on the light. It's supposed to be a night scene with a warm OSL. So again, Alexis, this is really nicely painted. It's very smooth, well defined, great airbrush work. It's very well executed for the most part. I think the cold light though, so like the night moonlight thing, I don't think it's selling particularly brilliantly because it looks like some of the highlights on the model are really warm. So like on the bone and like on this shoulder and even like on his face a little bit, some of it's cold and some of it's warm. So if you've got a cold light striking the surface of something, it's then going to produce warm shadows, and your shadows on this are very cold. On on the night lit side. Obviously, they're warm, like from the OSL side, but these I'd try and like venture into some more warm shadow tones to try and give you that contrast between light and dark a bit better. And also, it just seems that he's just generally lit too well for moonlight. So, like, the reds are really, really red, really saturated. It just looks like he's in daylight for the most part. So, yeah, I'm not totally sold on it being like a night setting. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. So, like, you're missing like the continuity across the tones. So watch out for that one in future. To make it look more nightly, you need to really, really desaturate everything down and use lots of blue tones. There's just too much warm color for it to really sell as a moonlight. But this is to take nothing away from the paint job, because it is, like I said before, very, very nicely put together. Then for the OSL side, it's pretty good, but watch out for the directionality I've got on it. So I think you've like done the glow like on the outsides of these scales, and like it's getting up onto his chest over here, but it's not particularly strong up in this area. So like you've got to set out like a sphere, an area of effect, and if you sort of draw a circle around like where you've done the glows, there's areas where the glow is not hitting, and then there's areas where the glow is hitting that's outside of that sphere, if that makes sense. So when you're planning out an OSL next time, you use the sphere effect, and at the outside of the sphere effect, it needs to be the least powerful sort of rendition of that glow. So as you can see here, like what's on quite close to the glowing acorn thing is pretty much the same intensity of what's further away on his body. So as you get further away from the source, it obviously needs to gradient away, and it needs to do that like following the shape of the sphere of effect that's on his body. So watch out for that. But like the brightness of the thing itself, I think is quite good, and like the tones you've used is good, and like where the shadows are is also good. It's just that area of effect is a little bit muddled up. So just watch out for that next time. But all in all, it's a really strong piece. I think like you've done great work on the skin, picking out all the little details and textures and stuff. The leathers look really, really great. Like the level of detail in there is awesome. So yeah, great stuff overall. Oh, and I really, really, really liked what you did with the face as well. If you get right up in there, like the detail that's in the eyes, like the individual strands in the beard, striations on the teeth, it's all beautiful stuff. So yeah, well done for the most part, Alexis. Thank you very much. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, it's really like a really striking looking piece, really vibrant, bold color choices on it, and very atmospheric. I agree with Jim in that I think the cold sort of moonlight look, like it sells really well on the skin because it looks like it's going into that blue green realm. And then as well, when you look at certain parts, you have like the cold red and the warm red, and that's a really cool look as well. But like Jim said, like on the bone goes to it's like a white light highlight. If that makes sense. Whereas if the bones are white, then if there's a bluish light on them, they should be pretty close to blue. So if you use like an ice blue, which is tricky because you're doing a lot of trying to paint warm things under a cold light, which is it's not easily done. But I think it looks really nice the way you've done it anyway. There is maybe a little bit of an issue in terms of the balancing of the intensity of the light as well. So like if you look at like his head, the dragon face thing, like the warm side of it on the left, like it's pretty much as bright as the other side. Whereas I think like the idea is that the moonlight is meant to be brighter than the glowing egg thing. And if you look at like the orc's skin on his chest, like it's not really being lit up nearly as much, even though it's much closer to the orb thing. Which again, you could be like, oh well, because it's green, it's not going to reflect as much orange light, but like it's still going to have specular reflection because it's skin, and that's what it looks like. It's like a rim light kind of thing. And like having this whole plane here of the dragon face lit doesn't really make sense, as Jim said, where it's like wrapped around and somehow hit it. So yeah, and I think generally you might have been a little bit better off when you're doing when you're planning it out again, like everything's executed very well. But like where you have like there's the orb is like say down here, you should have the moonlight coming from like really perpendicular to that, whereas it looks like you have it coming actually pretty strongly from the side, and it just creates this kind of weird asymmetry where he's half lit in one color and then like one quarter lit in the other, and it makes it a lot harder. Like if you look at his belt, for example, that like gold thingy, got a really solid line straight down the middle, which is saying, okay, well, he's lit completely from the side. But then if you look at his face, like the light wraps around all across his forehead to over here, which looks more like being lit from above. But yeah, like I said, it's like this is a really difficult piece that you chose to go with, and it looks like you deliberately chose colors that like have an interesting interaction with warm and cold light. So I think it's a really great piece overall, and thanks a million for submitting it. As usual, hope that was helpful to you. Next, we've got Dwart Lima, looking for overall composition and how to make it pop as a whole. Yeah, making things pop is my personal bugbear. Like, just like, what is it, that like little quintessential thing that just makes your mini pop? Not always easy to figure out what it is, let alone actually execute on it. Okay, so I'm going to start off with composition. I think kind of like the elephant in the room is like the big green face. Cause let me see, where's my thing? Yeah, like it's very kind of cartoon green, if that makes sense, like Frankenstein green, as opposed to like everything else is pretty naturalistic. Like the skin, the actual normal skin tone of the mask and stuff looks really great, really smooth, really kind of natural looking. Whereas like the creepy face underneath, like to me that looks kind of like it might make more sense if it was like raw flesh, like she's got no skin on because she doesn't have like skin around her teeth or anything. Or if you're going for like a green skin tone, like, you know, to go for a more like where she's like kind of rotted away, like you wouldn't have this incredibly vibrant like jade green look. So one of the things you can do is you can so if you start off with like a nice warm base skin tone like Bugman's Cloud or whatever, and then you highlight that up with like a pastel green, what'll happen is as they mix, you get this gray tone in the middle, and then it goes like green highlights, which gives people this like really unhealthy, like sick look. Or you can do it kind of the other way around, where you have like the shadows actually go to green. But like the way you've done it, it looks like you started with a dark green and just built up lots of layers of green, which doesn't give us the feeling that it's like a skin under there, like, and even like her gums are this kind of black color. I think it would look more creepy if it had some like recognizable human flesh tone to it, and then the greenness is meant to be like, you know, she's rotting away or like she's like cursed or like this putrid like pus in there, as opposed to it being such a like almost like a Halloween costume kind of green. Like it looks good, but it's just like stylistically quite different, I found, from the rest of the piece. And that's not easy to do because like obviously the whole piece is about this contrast where she's got like lovely flowers and she's got this beautiful woman's mask and then this horrific face in the middle. So it definitely contrasts with the rest of the piece if that's what you're going for. And what else I look for? Okay, in terms of sort of general feedback. So on the flowers on her head, you might want to just go for like one color of those, because like if you add a lot of different colors in a small area, it kind of like it reduces the poppiness because you get a lot of like interference, like your eye doesn't know exactly what to look at. And then as well, like you could do something. This is a tricky piece again with that weird like wheel behind her. Like it'd be nice maybe if you had the spokes of the wheel get darker and darker and darker towards the middle, and then she was like lit up in the center. But then, you know, that's not like the lighting situation you've gone for, and then the candle's going to complicate everything as well. So yeah, I think you've done very well on the dress, and the skin is very, very well defined, nice contrast, lovely colors, and very poppy. You could maybe have a bit more like extreme shadows, like where she's holding the mask, like here having like a very dark line just in the very center. You obviously have that, but just like where they're actually touching to show it's like wrapping around. And then you could have an extreme, like a very, very small extreme highlight in the middle of like her hand there, just to show that's where the light's like your actual highest highlight there. And similar with the kind of beads, but like it is very nice and poppy, that whole section there. And the green face as well is kind of poppy as well, but it's kind of like it's difficult for everything to pop. If everything pops, sort of nothing pops. But I think like really like the whole figure, like I really like the whole mask and everything aspect of it, and I like what you've done with the like the ring of flowers, color all around this creepy face. And if you want to go for like, you know, a very traditional spooky green face. Like you've obviously done that really well, also. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. Oh, also, yeah, I like what you did with the hair, the way that's like kind of blue gray color. It was a nice touch because it ties it in with kind of dress and the other tones you got in there. Jim, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I agree with the greenness of it. I think there's a couple of reasons why things don't quite resolve. Everything's very very smooth, like skin wise. On her, like arms, hand, like the mask is beautifully smooth, and then you've got this like really rough, choppy texture to like the real face, if you like, the green one. So I think if it was smoother, it would help, and also if highlights went a little bit higher, like because the eye is just naturally drawn to this because the the human brain is just trained to recognize faces, so we see the face over here. So it's a very tricky one anyway because it's obviously a mask. So it also looks a little bit unfinished because you've got the flesh tone in the actual like sockets of the eyes. So like one of the main things I think is, I wonder if you just blacked out these eyes so they just look like holes. Like I wonder what that would do straight away, because we're seeing this face here and it almost looks real, but the flesh tone in it, if there was blacks in there and we could, our brains would identify the fact that then it's more recognizable as a mask, if you see what I mean, then it might make things settle down in our mind's eye a lot better. Definitely sort this recess shadow out here. It looks like you've gone in with a glaze and like some of that flesh tone settle like right in this joint. So yes, darken that down. That'd be really cool. And then I agree with Matt. I think with the flowers, just stick to a couple of colors. So obviously blue dress, like blue in the hair. So your obvious choice would be like orange for the flowers, but obviously there are different types of flowers. So like maybe make the daisy type ones, all orange, and then keep the rosy ones as roses because they're red roses, whatever. I think that's a great idea. I think there's a bit too much color and the attention's coming away. This is the other thing for it. A lot of attention is drawn to the mask because it's more recognizable a face, and a lot of attention is drawn to the riot of colors on her head. So like we're then not really drawn to the actual real face in the middle. So there's a few things that are like contributing to it. But I think your execution is really good. Like in general, you've got good contrast and good travel in colors and stuff. I think you could maybe take the cat's fur a little bit higher, give that a little more sheen. I think that'll work. And then whatever's going on the back piece, I think is absolutely fine. It's not a focal point of the model, so I'd leave that how it is. Anything else? Just like general broadening of the highlights on the skin. You could just go a little bit further. Like it's pretty much there, but I just think some like extreme sheen highlights would really really work for it as well. But like a really interesting piece. I haven't seen this model before, and I think you've done a really really nice job of it overall. But bit of a challenge. But I think the main thing be to black out those eyes there and try and smooth down the green in there, and try and brighten up the eyes that are actually in here as well. See if that helps. But yeah, really enjoyed looking at this. Thank you, Duarte. Hope I've said that right. Moving up to Jamie Mackey. It says he can see some problems with the hair, bat, and the crown. Would welcome any general thoughts or suggestions or anything else he's missed. So this is very cool, Jamie. Once again, very like vampiric feel to this. With the blood red eyes and like this is, if Dwight is still watching, like this is what Matt was talking about with like the tinge to the green to give it like a sickly, deathly kind of feel to it rather than being bright grey green. It's very, very subtle shades. I think it looks awesome. The bat, I think you're talking about like picking out some of the details in the black. Like his back looks a lot better than the wings, so very very tiny detail on the eyes. It's gone very nicely there, so well done. But yeah, maybe picking up some details in the bat's wings. I think that's what you mean. As for hair, I think you mean like separating it, because it kind of looks like the highlights look a little bit blown out in some places. Great contrast, but again just like deepening some shadows. Just doing some individual strands, both light and dark, I think would really, really help. The red is absolutely gorgeous. I've written down like that is stunning. Like the purpley tone that's gone in there, like for the shadows, looks a little bit sheeny in places. That might just be rude camera behavior, but yeah, I think it was good round. Was there one from the back? No back shots in this one. But yeah, like just tiny little bit of sheen happening in shadows there, which is a bit harsh, but still. The nails of her hands didn't come out really well in the pictures, I don't think. Like, you can see a little bit of contrast there in the black and white, but I wondered like how it would feel if her nails were red, to be honest, because you've got like red in the headdress, red in the eyes, and that's a very deep and menacing red, and I wouldn't change that. Like if that was like scarlet or like blood red, I think she would suffer. So I think this red is perfect. And then obviously you've got the red down the dress, but like to connect the two, like the top and the bottom of it, I was just wondering if you had this line of red nails going down, whether that would help the eye kind of travel up and down the piece a little bit better, rather than the black. But I wasn't too sure about it, but I thought it worth mentioning. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got, because when I first looked at it, to be honest, it was just like, okay, cool, bust, yeah, nice soft contrast. And then the more I looked, the more I saw, and I was like, the better this is actually getting. So like down to the flesh, like these little highlights that you've got going on like this wrist bit here, and like the crook of her arm, and like how smooth that is, like the freckles I started picking out. Then you've got brocade on the fabric as well, and then like I was getting into like how you've rendered the lips and like the sheen and the micro texture on the lips, and then you've gone in with like this insanely detailed like ivy that's growing in her hair, and it was just like, oh, do you know, the more you look, the more you see. So yeah, it just got better and better as I carried on looking at it. So yeah, I don't have much criticism really, Jamie. It's a wonderful piece again. So thank you very much for submitting. She's beautiful. Well done. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, super great thing as usual, Jamie. Like I think having looked at a few of your pieces previously, you can see like you have a type of piece that you like, and I think it's kind of obvious that you really enjoy painting like the face and the skin on this lady, and then some of the other bits you're a bit like not feeling it as much, just because like they're not to the same standard. Like the face is like absolutely amazing. Like I love the whole black red eyes with the like little dots and the lips and everything about that's gorgeous. And this, as Jim said, the skin tone. And then you have this like little ivy bracelet around your arm. It looks like something I could paint. So like you can tell like you didn't. That's not like it's to me. It's kind of a weird model because she's a vampire, but she's like wearing a Christmas wreath on her head, and she's got all these like ivy, and it's got this whole like nature theme. Like if you just painted this differently, apart from the bat, like that's obviously got to be a vampire. But, like you could paint her as like a nature goddess or like the ghost of Christmas past or whatever, and that would work perfectly. But like I wonder if that was what was throwing you off. Because yeah, like to me, I'm like looking at it going, what like you could have why'd you paint the bat to look like an actual bat? Because like it's the wrong way around. Like its bat landed on her. It looks like her face, its face is pointing out. So like you could have done it as like a ornament, like a bracer or whatever, and did it in like NMM. That would have probably looked cooler. And then again, like the crown of like holly or like branches, like they're very kind of stock wood looking, which doesn't fit with this whole like super like vampire theme you got going on. Like that could be like a silver crown or done in like really cold lighting, so that like doesn't like yellow at all. It's gray with like blue tinge to it. You can get wood that'll look like that on a like, lighting scenario. And then the candles again, similar to like our previous Duarte's one. Just annoying having lit candles on your piece because you're like, well, you have to do it as OSL or whatever. And I don't think like if they weren't lit, it would be just it'd be a lot less hassle. Like can't like painting flames like that is just like very impractical in my experience because we should be able to see through them if she's lit normally, but we can't because they're physical objects. And then you have that whole thing of like they're be dark underneath, but then light again down in space. But yeah, so those are just ideas, kind of like compositional ideas again, like not technical. Like maybe if you just did it that way, you would have it like you're like I'm thinking of that bust of that like evil goddess lady with all the spikes coming out of her that you did in this beautiful like gold NMM thing, and you could just make a couple of the elements, like her whole like weird ivy bracer on her arm could be all metallic if you wanted, if that's something that you enjoy painting. I think the red fingernails is a good shape, or you could get your nail art on if you're like super into it and try and paint like something on her nails, like red, like a hourglass shape, like a Black Widow thing, red. That'd be cool. And then on the hair, it's a nice tone. It's well done. I think like for some of the bits, it just looks a bit like the highlights are probably kind of too broad. Like if you so like when you think about it, if it's like a wave, you're going to be highlighting the top edge and the bottom, like the crest and the trough, whereas you have it kind of going across as if it was more of a linear shape, like up here, and then down where her hand is, like scrunching it up. Like there should be a bounce light where it wraps back around under, because that's like a curve there, and you'll have to reverse, like it's going to attract light in there or reflect more light from there. Also, if you're doing this kind of like trying to go for that kind of very off-white, very shiny kind of hair, one of the things I found works is to just start off doing it all in like hatch marks, so that, and then you can just like control exactly where you want each like highlight and shadow area to go, but you do it all by texture lines, and like in some places they'll disappear because there's so many and they're so close together, and you can just very easily control like where your exact like kind of specular, I suppose, highlights in the extreme highlights fit, and that way. There's just another way of doing it. I don't know how exactly you approach this one, but yeah, like I said, super great painting on especially the face, especially the skin. The other stuff could be kept up a notch, as you said yourself, but like it's already painted to a high standard by a lot of other people's metrics. So you know, if you're happy with if what you're interested in is the lady and not her accoutrements, like, I mean, that's how it is. Thanks a million for submitting. Hope you see more from you in the future, Jamie. Hope that was helpful as well. Okay, now we have this, like, I want to call him like a bard, this chibi-headed little dude. He's really fun, by Aaron Wilkerson. So looking for feedback on particularly the NMM on the helmet. Yeah, he's cool. I only realized kind of towards the end of looking at this, it's kind of weird that he has he's wearing like a scuba suit, but he has a hat on. You know, like, why would he have a hat on as well? Presumably he like took his helmet off and put the hat on or whatever, or maybe he had it under there. I don't know. But yeah, I like, in terms of the NMM, I think it's got a nice kind of cartoony metal look to it. Like if you look at illustrations, particularly from like anime or like cartoons or whatever, they tend to do metal in a particular way where they just have like a zone of highlight that's very similar to the overall shape, and they don't necessarily go up that high in terms of their contrast. And that's kind of what it looks like here. But if you wanted to make it a bit more like poppy or realistic or whatever, I think that like the dome of the head could definitely have more of just an extreme highlight. Like you have an area where it's lighter, but it should go up to like a near white, and you could do that by like by hatching. Or a lot of the time you see people with this particular shape, they do this kind of H shape. Well, it'd be a sideways H where you have like a line and then a bunch of like little hatches there, and then a longer line then below. You could look at like helmets to like get an idea of it, or other people's like take on this is a typical kind of shape you see in a lot of armor. I do think it's a little bit weird the way you have that ridge up the middle, and it looks really nice the way you've gone like it goes to dark and then it has an extreme like a edge highlight and then it's light on the other side. But like if he's lit from the top, there's no reason why the right hand side would be much darker than the left hand side, if that makes sense. I think it looks cool in the frontal view, just because compositionally it's a nice like light to dark to light again thing going on. But from the side it looks a bit weird because like you're basically saying, well, a plane that's facing like this is completely dark, and then you have his head behind it is perfectly well lit. So yeah, that's just a kind of a realism kind of thing. So you could just have, because you can also have, you could do a different pattern on that where it's like not as bright towards the top, or there's other little ways of kind of fiddling around with it where you to make that look kind of, because you want to kind of straddle the line between what looks cool and what looks realistic as well. And then the last thing, or last few things, his face seems to have like a lot of texture on it. I don't know if that's like, it looks like scan lines. I don't know if this is like 3D printed or what. If they are, if there's anything you can do to get rid of them, that'd be great. or if it's like built up paint, like there's ways to get rid of that as well. And then yeah, I really like the little scene that you have him in where he's like coming in off the beach and there's that like that starfish down there at the bottom. It's a nice fun little detail, and I think he's a cool character piece as well. So like I really like it. And thanks for putting him up here for the review. Jim, do you want to add anything on?
Yeah, agree with all the comments about the helmet. Yeah, so just a slightly wider gamut, higher highlights, few edge highlights. I think you're good on the helmet. I really like what you did with the lenses and the pipe thing on the back. The way you rendered that metal, I think, is more believable. So like this level of contrast, I think is better. I think you could probably get some more tones in the face. So like there's a little bit of like a pinky reddy hue, like in the like dip of the nose just there. But I think just rosing up the cheeks a little bit would be cool. And then something that's thrown the eyes off for me. So I think it's like where like the glint reflections are in the irises. It's cool that they're in there, but like where the life light is in the pupil, it's like right, pretty much slap bang in the middle of the pupil. Try moving that to like one of the top, either the top left or the top right corner. I think from like the lighting angle probably would sell better coming from the top left of the pupil. So just like cover these up with black and just move the glint over here up in this top corner. Kind of like I think this one looks better. So if you just did that black, I think that would almost start to look better already. But I think you just need a little bit more going into the glint can cross the blue iris and into the black pupil. That's absolutely fine. And then just watch out, like this one, this glint is like top left and this one's bottom left, and then here they're in direct opposites. I think the direct opposites looks better. So yeah, just have a little bit more of a play with it with the irises, just to try and make those look a little bit more realistic. And then while you're at it, like if you can tidy up some of the separation lines in the eyes, I think that would really help too. Like some of them are really, really thick and a bit wobbly. That's a little bit picky, obviously, for this scale, but yeah, while you're in there. I really like what you did with the base as well. Not quite sure how you did it, but like those water effects, like that kind of cartoony effect, I think you nailed it. And like, you know, considering the scale of it, I think the sand looks very believable as well. So that's all awesome. The only thing I would do with the base is maybe like tidy up the black like rim. It's not very like uniform. That needs to be like crisp and round, and that would really help settle this down. It's much better around the water look. It's just around the sand, and I get that it's, you know, it's sand and it's the way it's been put down, but yeah, just try and do something just to tidy up that black rim, and I think it'll be good. Fun little dude and nicely executed. So thank you, Aaron. Hope that helps. Right, moving up to Kelsey. Only thing completed this month. Well, you did better than everyone that did nothing, so congratulations. Any feedback? Yes, no, names mentioned. You, Mr. O'Brien. I bet you can't wait to get back to it, can you? Yeah, so
Yeah, absolutely.
any feedback welcome. How did we do on marbling and crumbling stairs, lightning on the sword, and the fabric texture on the robe? So I think I'll start with the fabric texture. So I think it looks pretty damn good. Like on the front tabard, up around the shoulders and stuff, it's got like a kind of woolen feel to it. So I think that sells, and then like the stippling on the black. On the cape, I think is gone, and there's like it's hard to differentiate between light reflecting on texture and obviously dirt. And I think we're doing okay. There's just I think you could, if you pushed like the value of the texture on the actual cape itself and take it up to a brighter highlight, it'll help differentiate it from like the splattery speckly dirt. Same goes for the one on the front, to be fair. Just take it up a little bit brighter. I think that would really help. For the marbling effect, I think you're doing okay. Like you can see, just like painting, like the shape of it is quite cool and it's quite thin. I think again though, if you just brighten up some of the strands, that would really help. That is going to be tough to do because you're doing it on busted up cork. So this is obviously very, very battered marble because it is obviously incredibly glossy normally. So for it to get to this level of disrepair. Also, I'd expect a little bit more like dust, like fragments, so like PVA glue, a bit of sand or something like that, just like building up against this step. This step just looks a little bit too clean for me. If it's got to this level of being knackered up, I just think there would be more debris and dirt and stuff building up on it. Even like, a skull or something, just something else going on with the base, I think would really help, because it is a little bit obvious that it is cork, to be honest with you. So yeah, just a little more visual interest on the stairs in general. But yeah, if you just get into some of these the veins with like a hyper sharp, thin, brighter color, that would really help to pop it up as well. Same for the lightning. Just a little bit more white in it, I think would be good. I like the colors that you've used. They're just it's a little bit dotty. Like the way the light travels down lightning is a little bit more random than the way you've done it. Like your brain has done a thing and just put like the white on the points where it's touching the edges, and it's all very uniformed, like zigzaggy angles as well. So whoopsie, what have I done? Next time you do it, try and like randomize like the path of the lightning, rather than going straight line to that edge, straight line to that edge, straight line to that edge, etc. And round and round we go. Like it's all the same around the sword. You see what I mean? It's all very, very linear, and everything's also the same thickness. So it helps to have some really, really thin ones as well that don't necessarily have to touch the edges of the blade. They could just sort of arc round, and touch the lightning bolt again, if you see what I mean. Not every strand that moves down the blade has to touch the edge. You can do like one main thick one that travels like the length of the blade and it touches the side in some cases, and then just do some like little satellite arcs that kind of come and bend off and reattach to the main arc, or indeed come off and touch the side. But you've just gone for a very angular, they cross, they touch the side. So yeah, just try and randomize it a little bit next time. But the colors that you've used is good, and I think it does generally sell as lightning. But yeah, it's just those little details, and it is very tricky to do because it's very, 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 very small. So yeah, kudos for giving it a bash. It is a good effort. And then just generally, I like the armor. Like it's kind of grim darky, and kind of like the way you've rendered like the dusty feet, I think is really good. And I think the metals have come out really well as well. Like nice bright highlights, very deep shadows, like reflections on like all of the metals. I think they're the dark horse on the whole piece, to be honest. I think the metals were really quite successful on this. They really do sell. So nice work. I've not seen this helm before. I don't know whether you converted this or this is just a model I'm not familiar with. But yeah, pretty ostentatious helm he's got going on. Then I think the last thing that I was going to say was... Oh, sorry, wrong one. Yeah, the red. Which red was I talking about? Probably this cape. So like you've got some dust on it, but I'd like maybe try and get some more. I mean the lighting in the photo is doing the work for you, but I think you need some more like shadow contrasting on the red, just to push it a little bit deeper, give it like a rich purple tone or something. That would give it a lot more depth, I think, and probably for the wings as well. I was trying to find a good shot of the wings. I think that's probably the best one. They're a little bit just red, so try and bring out the edges, bring out the tips, shade up to where the actual wing structure is, and that would really help as well. But yeah, cool stuff overall, Kelsey. Hope that helps. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, it's a nice looking marine guy. So yeah, on the marble, the crumbly marble staircase, I think one of the issues I'm having looking at it, like I think it looks good, but like marble doesn't crumble because it's really hard. Like it shatters, and you'll get like chunks, like and sharp edges missing out of it. So you've got this kind of issue where it looks more like basalt or concrete or something like that will crumble apart around the edges, because the physical texture you have is very different to the painted on texture of the marble. And also it looks like it's kind of a black marble, which isn't super common. So you might be a bit better off trying to do like a more like a starting from a lighter color, because just you kind of got two things happening. You're trying to trick people into believing this is marble, and we're familiar with seeing like Jim said, pristine, like polished marble that is generally fairly light colors, whereas you have it in very dark colors and it's all smashed up with bullet holes and things. So yeah, and probably like the staircase could be a bit more wrecked in the middle, I feel, because it seems like the bottom step is like smashed on the right and the left, and then it would be nice to have and the middle, the top step is kind of perfect the whole way across. But if you like cut a chunk out of that, it would kind of just make it sell a bit better because like that edge is very perfect. Um, and then yeah, Lightning Blade is cool. I think Lightning is successful whenever it reminds you of a heavy metal album cover, and that's doing that for me. So good work. And the texture on the robe is good because it's much more interesting when you've done the scuffy things on it than just leaving it black. And I prefer it to that like really fine white lines that people do sometimes. I think it's a cooler look and it's more like appropriate for the scene he's in. One little thing, I don't think Jim mentioned it, but on like the helmy thingy, you have like the red wings and the gold. It's kind of hard to get a right angle on it, but it looks like you can have a little bit of separation between them. Like it looks like it's a very bright red. I don't know, maybe it's just that one photo that's doing it. So yeah, I can't get quite a good view of it, but just make sure that you kind of like have a good shadow line in between your red before it goes out to the gold, just to sell them as kind of separate materials that are like bolted together or whatever, or crafted together. Yeah, but good work. Thanks for submitting. I hope that was of use to you. Beelkins, it's a 35 millimeter lady, a few print flaws, and then looking for light and shadow and skin tones and just general kind of stuff as well. This is really good. I think this is probably one of your favorite pieces I've seen, Beelkins. I really just love the composition of it, the color choices, the way it's like got this really bright like moss stuff going in the front of the base, and it's like selling that kind of like she's almost like a voodoo priestess, and there's this like super green like verdant energy to it, and then you have the really contrasting blues and purples that just like frames everything. You got that nice thing where like the flowers or mushrooms at the bottom are the same as tones as like the headdress and the knife, and it's really cool. And it's a really good, great example actually of like why is your knife blue? And you're like, well, because it looks cool if it's blue, and you painted it, so you get to decide what color it is, and it was the right choice, I have to say. So yeah, it's really conjuring a whole scene, and I really like basically all of your kind of choices on it. The light and shadow is good. You definitely get when you look at the rear, like a definite feeling that like she's much more lit from the front, and you have this kind of cold, not as strong highlights, but still like a lot of interest, and like we can make out what's going from behind. It kind of reminds me of who was it? Was it did that Badger last month? And like this is like was what I'm kind of talking about. Yeah, you get that feeling she's coming out of into like a jungle clearing, and it really, you know, we all understand like yes, the shadows are behind her and the light is coming from the front, and it's really, really effective, I think. And it's also again great example of stone being interesting versus like a lot of times you just do it as gray. Okay, skin tone. I think the skin is quite good. I think the toes, if at all possible, I know it's very small, but if you could like pick out, do something with the toenails, make them look a little bit more like reddish or something. I mean, it's so small you could cover it with grass, but they just have that thing where they look like they're just part of the foot. And then the skin on the legs, you might like. I quite like the way you've done the highlights and the shadows, the redness in the knee. I was wondering exactly how this woman's knees stay together because, like, if you look at how wide her thigh is and how massive her calves are and how tiny her knees are, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But you know, that's the sculptor. I thought the skin on the upper body, you could have. I would make on the shoulders maybe the highlights a little bit smaller and a little bit more intense because like on her leg you get that kind of feeling that it's like glossy, like the skin there's like refraction happening or she's like a bit sweaty or whatever, and over the muscle where it's protruding from underneath the skin we get this kind of like shape highlight, whereas on the shoulder it's much more of like kind of a general dome. But like it'd be nice to have like the deltoid muscle or whatever it is that they're like picked out like in a more defined way, but that's pretty small. And I think like the way you've done the face drawing so much attention is really strong as well with like, the black eyes and like the white skull mask. It's really cool. And I nearly like even missed like the gold NMM like in between the skull and the feathers is like really nicely done. It's a really cool choice. And it's just like an extra little detail to discover in there. So it was great. there anything else I wanted to add? No, yeah, I really like this piece, and like it's super impressive. Again, you see like that 1 cent coin beside it, which is like minuscule, and she looks like so well realized compared to it. So great work, absolutely. Jim, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, really great work. As you said, I've been sat here with the picture with the 1 cent pretty much the whole time, just to really emphasize like how you've managed to get like the level of separation on these tiny little elements, like between the wraps on the handle and like between the bangles and stuff. It's really, really, really crisp work. Really awesome. Um, I'd have to be really, really hypercritical to be, to help it move along. But I think it's like pretty much the only thing that you could do to improve it is smooth it out. I mean, some sections of the skin are like creamy smooth, and then others are like a little bit stiffly. Obviously, it's just going to be hella work and hours, and it depends how bothered you are about it. But like where you've put the highlights, the tones, the general contrast of the skin, I think you've absolutely got it down. I think the only way to make it better is to smooth it out. But at this scale, that's going to be an awful lot of work. So, yeah, take that as you wish. I thought maybe like for the hair, I think it's maybe a little. I think it's supposed to be black, and I think it's a little bit bright. To be honest, it's just a little bit touch over the 50% being left black. So maybe dial that back a bit. If it's supposed to be like this kind of bluey hue, then ignore that completely. Again, this is hypercritical. And then the only other thing that Matt hasn't said was like the gold. I think it does read as metal, but it's like a very. But if it's supposed to be like an Amazonian gold, I'd maybe saturate it just a little bit, just like with some gentle glazes of like a like a light ochre, just to get some more saturation in it. If it's supposed to be like quite a tarnished metal, then leave it as it is. Like quite a rough texture to it because she's out and about and obviously quite a barbarian tribal whatever. It's probably not going to be highly polished anyway. So yeah. Oh, and what you did like with the two wounds, like they sell really really well. So excellent work covering up the flaws there. And again, amazing work on the rock as well, as Matt said. So generally, just high praise all around, Beelkids. It's really, really lovely. So yeah, well done. Thank you very much for sharing. Okay, moving up to Kelvin. Happy New Year's to you too. And also, you're very welcome. We love doing this. So yes, keep submitting. Bring some friends so we could do it some more. So basically saying first thing is painted in months due to burnout. So just wants overall feedback on the model, what to improve in order to speed up the painting process, and what needs more attention to detail and what needs less time. Any other tips and tricks, and limited to 10 hours painting. So first thing would be why limit to 10 hours painting? That's not a lot of time, especially if you're going for something like display. It says you're going for above tabletop and display standard, and my advice would be don't limit yourself to 10 hours. Don't even limit yourself to any amount of hours because you never know. Sometimes the magic happens and it all just clicks, and sometimes you'll just be killing yourself for 3 hours and not really getting anywhere, and you don't know why. That's fine. Put the brushes down, try again tomorrow. Don't set yourself, don't put that pressure on yourself. This 10 hours, I don't think there's any value in that at all. If you're doing like a commission and it's like, okay, I need to make this worth my time because I'm not going to sit here painting an orc for 30 hours that I'm only getting paid $5 for, then of course, yes, then set some hours. But if you're painting for yourself for display, don't forget about this. Just do whatever you need. Now, getting into this then, what jumps out straight away to me is like the steel is really, really good. Like that pops out. Like you've got the reflections, you've got secondaries, you've got edges. It's all looking really, really good. And then the question is, what is that other color? Is it supposed to be gold? Or is it supposed to be bronze? I'm not quite sure, but the eye is drawn immediately and pretty much stays here because this is where all the contrast and the smoothness is. So like the red could use more travel and possibly some texture. Same with the purple. There's a little bit there, but you could definitely go, further, like out highlight up on these ridges, these edges, You know, they would catch more light. Should probably be a little bit smoother, or put some deliberate texture on the edges. That would really, really help. Like you can see it, like really needs it on the back here. It's cool how you've got the shadow where it like folds back underneath him a little bit. That's nice, but like these ridges definitely need to come up. So you could take this into the orange and yellow spectrum, or you could take it up through the pink and then up to white spectrum. But it's got to go up to pretty much, you know, white. And then what you do with red is once you've run that contrast across all of the ridges and folds, then you go, oh, and deepen the shadows as well with some more purple. Then go back over the whole thing and glaze it back down twice with a very thin bright red, like this red. So you kind of over egg it massively, and you look at it thinking, what the hell have I done? And then you hit it with those two thin red glazes, and it will be a very beautiful vibrant red. So yeah, there's loads of videos on how to paint red. Vincent Venturella, or Hobby Cheating on YouTube, is probably one of the best, where he displays this technique. So go and check that out. That'll really help for red. I digress slightly. So whatever this other like armor metal color is, I think if it's supposed to be gold, there's too much shadow value in it. So you've picked out all the details really nicely, and it's actually separated quite well as well. But there just needs to be way more highlight if it's supposed to be metal. But yeah, it doesn't really render as any particular material, and the tones are quite close to what I think is like a fire in the poleaxe head. I think that's supposed to be a fire in there. So like it's just I can't really tell what this is supposed to be, if it's, you know, a metal or what. So try and render that a little bit better. If it is metal, then treat it as you've treated the steel, but just obviously with different colors. I really liked what you did with the leather. That sells, like the scratches and like the colors that you've got in there. That's lovely. It feels to me like the color that's on the pommel here, like if the rest of the armor was painted like that would look pretty stunning, man. That's got, and which is why this is another reason I'm so confused about it, because if you were you know, this is selling as like a warm gold. So like, what if you're trying to sell warm gold, then surely you would have just done that. Which is why I'm so confused about it, because you can do a warm gold because it's right there. I'm looking at it. So I just don't know really what's going on with this, what it's supposed to be. And it's a lot duller than this. So like all of the attention should be up here and like the chest and the head, but all of the attention is like on the belly and the legs, because it's so much brighter and there's much better contrast and smoothness there. So that's why it's kind of a little bit tricky, like, to read and look at. Anything else? Oh yeah, the last thing. I need to point out this beautiful axe blade. That's really gorgeous, very nice. But do something else on this. It doesn't really matter what you do here. There just needs to be some sort of light to dark transition on the black part here. Even if you did like a little pattern, just something, you know, a little gold inlay or something, just something to break up that black surface. But the blade looks really good, hyper smooth, great contrast. You know, it looks lovely. Nice work. And then the final thing was just that the base could do with a little bit more. It's very like, there is some like green and brown tone in there, but it's it needs some more like vegetation, stones, rocks, skulls, you know, something, anything. Just vary it up a little bit. But yeah, other than that, some really cool work in there, Kelvin. So thank you very much for submitting. Over to you, Matt.
Yep. So what the base actually needs is loads and loads of human faces, because in Kingdom Death the ground is made out of faces for some reason, but they don't give you a base with faces for the monsters, which is annoying. I actually quite like this cave. Like, it's very desolate, which I think it makes sense for Kingdom Death, but Jim is right in that you could have like some like oxide, like iron pigment like stippled in there or something, just to make it a bit more vibrant. But if you're going for a very like desolate, cold, empty environment, then I quite like that. Looks kind of like the Underdark maybe a little bit as well. But yeah. So just for reference, this model, so you say you have suffered from burnout. I got burnout painting this guy, and then end up spending over a year just trying to paint him on and off because he is very, very hard to paint because he's got so much metal and it's so elaborate and ornate, and like every surface is like an armor panel with like a hand holding a face, holding another hand or something on it, and or with a crown. It's all very annoying. But yeah, like Jim said, like around the waist, the NMM is like amazingly good, and on the blade, it's amazingly good. And then on the legs, it's just way too bright. It makes it look like it's white metal instead of like as in it's painted white, like ivory or something. And then on the gold, the handle, the way you've done the gold, the handle looks great and it sells as metal, whereas it's too yellowy kind of. And as well, you're running into this issue with, I think on mine, like, so there's like on the helmet, there's like a face and then there's hands holding it and then there's a crown. So I think what I did was I made the face gold and the hands silver and then the crown gold again. So you have this like transition in between the two different the different sections, and that makes it a lot easier to differentiate them. Whereas otherwise, you're relying solely on your highlight placement and your light to dark, and maybe some interference color to do that, which in a very small area is like extremely hard. So yeah, I just feel your pain, to be honest with you. What's I gonna say? So if you want to speed things up, number one tip is don't paint NMM because it takes way longer. So like, you could do it a different way. Like if it was really tarnished or if it was in metallics or whatever. I mean, to get good true metallic metal can take as long, arguably. But to get good NMM, like especially for something like this, where it's got so much metal, like just doing the sword hilt and the pommel is pretty easy. But trying to get every panel of the armor to sell as metal is very hard because every part has to sell before any of it sells. Although in this case, you do have parts that are selling exactly as metal, just because of just you can't not believe some of it is metal. Also, I do less colors. So like you have this kind of red and purple, but like when you think about it, he's red and purple and kind of gold and steel. So if you got rid of the purple, maybe that would save you some time or whatever. I do think it is a good idea to do them in two towns of metal because it's just too hard to do different panels otherwise. But pick your battles like as well. Like I actually cut the lantern off him because I didn't want to have to do NMM or not object sort sliding. I was like, no, I just cut it off, and then I cut off a bunch of like rivets and stuff on the halberd to make it look less ornate, and that made it a lot easier to paint and save time. That way, I just prefer how it looks. So I don't know. It's definitely an option. And then what's the last thing I was going to say? Yeah, so just think about the whole overall piece. Like, if you're trying to save time, think about like, do we care about his feet and legs? And the short answer is like, no, not really. Like the sculptor did put a lot of work in there, but you really want to like put the most work into the most important areas, and that's going to be his face and his upper body. And like, I don't know, maybe you feel like I didn't care about the plume. I was like, why didn't I cut this plume off? But I think I couldn't, or for whatever reason I didn't. But like, is it that important? Maybe it's important to you, and then you spend a lot of time on that, and then you save time in other places. So that would be a tip there, especially if you're limiting yourself on time. Like you can. We always talk about it with busts where people like kind of phone it in on the back or don't do the back, and you're like, I mean, ideally you would, but no, we don't have an infinite amount of time. So if you want to save time on places people don't necessarily care about. And like I really think here, definitely, if you had put less brightness into like the legs, you would have more time to do the top, and like it would have looked better overall. Not to say it doesn't look good. I mean, as a study in NMM, just that middle section of the torso is like pretty amazing. So and as Jim said, the kind of the hilts and the stuff of the sword. So take those skills with you going forward. Pick a guy. Like I did this guy as like my test of can I do NMM, because it was like it's literally a guy made out of metal. Like so it's like super challenging. And so I think you've definitely got a lot of great work in the NMM. Silver particularly, or steel kind of color, and that's definitely something to be happy with and take with you going forward. And yeah, we're always around online. If you're looking for like feedback on anything, just post it up. Maybe and then like it's exactly like Painters Motivating Painters is kind of there for people who don't have a hobby group that they can talk to in person. So we're really happy to be able to help you out with this. Thanks a million for submitting, Kelvin. Hope to see you again sometime. Then we have John Israel. Happy New Year! Happy New Year to you, John. Loving all these Infinity models that are popping up. This lady is very nice, I have to say. I think it's one of my favorite ones. Just the color choice, the like orange and blue. You're like, we're doing cyberpunk, guys. It's gonna be bright orange and blue. I really love it. Feedback on whether the vinyl reads as vinyl and if the skin and the face read right. Okay, so by vinyl, I assume what you mean is that she's got like a PVC catsuit kind of thing on, and especially in the rear view, it's like definitely reading as some kind of shiny body glove type of thing, or almost even could be like body paint or whatever. So I'd say that's successful. I think maybe the blue leg, you have the highlight is a bit too broad, because it's a kind of a medium blue color. So really the highlight should just only be the peak reflected light, because like a shiny surface has very small, very intense highlights and shadows as well. Also, you could argue that like around your butt or bum, like around the buttocks region, if it's like that glossy, she could actually have a bounce light on the underneath, like as if it was a sphere of metal. I don't know if you want to go there, but it's an option.
Technically true.
I think on the front, I think the torso looks very good, especially the large like round shapes. You're really good at doing them. I think the forearms guards aren't as convincing. I think it's like a little bit weird. They don't look like they would be like clothing. They're like bracers. Like they've got like these bits that stick up out of them. They look like they hold their shape themselves. So I think they might make more sense as like some kind of metal or something else. And then the way you've done the highlights on them, like I don't think there's enough room. Kind of, it should be like a really thin line if you're going with that look. And also on like say her front left leg, you got a pretty big highlight that goes like the whole way down the front of the leg. Whereas like the way she's holding her gun kind of looks like that leg should be in shadow. And there's no real reason, like if the highlight's there, it's suggesting that the light is like hitting that area pretty directly, where like everything else says the light's coming down from the top. So I think you could leave that off, like her front left eye could just not have a highlight on it because it isn't being hit with direct enough light to have a highlight. It just goes up to that orange color, which is already a pretty bright color. So yeah, it's actually a pretty minor thing to be honest with you, but that's just a note. Then on the face, I think you could have a little bit more extreme highlights on the face, like going up to your absolute brightest, because it looks to me like the brightest part of it is the chest, particularly the orange bits where they wrap around, which looks pretty good. But you want to have something like an extreme like dot highlight on the nose and like under the eyes and the T-zone, just to bring it up a bit more. And as well, because even if you have used the same like paint there, the same like level, because you have a much broader area of like light colors, that's going to attract the eye more, and it looks effectively brighter. So you need to like pump up the under here, which is what people do with makeup. People put like that, like get that dewy glow under their eyes, so they'll actually like make this section lighter so that it draws attention up there. And then was there anything else? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I like the hexagon pattern as well. I think that's really cool and like cyberpunky as well. So overall, yeah, I think she's one of your nicest figs that we've seen so far. And thanks a million for submitting, Jim.
Yeah, for the most part, this is really good. Small piece with good contrast and an amazing color scheme as well, like the orange and blue. Awesome. Who doesn't love that? So the sheen, I think, sells best on the back of her, so like onto her buttocks. And I think the reason for that is you've got like an intermediate tone, like between like the sheen, like you then go to this like yellowy and then to the orange and then into the red, but like in a lot of other places, like directly underneath, like it's just straight into the white and it's just a bit too stark. Same with the blue. It looks better in some places because you've got that intermediate tone that kind of smooths it out. So, with a very, very thin you know, like glaze consistency, bit of stippling just around like the borders of where these sheens are, I think you could like boost that up really quick and easy. Like it's really obvious here as well on this the front right reflection. Excuse me. So just try and soften these, and I think it would read an awful lot better. I agree with Matt about the skin. There's good tones in there, but definitely bump up the highlights in the face for sure. I got that one in there. Separation is really good in some places and missing in others. So an example of it being really good would be like here between the blue and the orange. That's really well separated. Like obviously the eye sockets is probably the best example of it because you've managed to get the black line around the sockets, so that's awesome. But then like the entire like opening of the uniform, like around her chest, there's no separation there between the skin and the fabric. So whack something in there, and that will bring that up an option. And obviously between the orange and the blue as well, that would really help. And then like between the skin and the bracers as well, there could be some more separation there. So yeah, there's a few other elements around, but just use the eyes as your measuring stick. You need that level of darkness. So what I usually do for it is I mix like a very dark brown, like Rhinox hide, with black. If you do it as dead black, it's just too much. And if you do it as like a very dark brown, it's not enough. So mix the two together, and you get like this perfect tone to line between like skin and fabric or metal or whatever it's going to be doing. But yeah, other than that, yeah, really, really fun, cool piece. Again, for the scale, this is all quite hypercritical. So yeah, nice work, John. Thank you very much. And then finishing off with Aaron Gudge. Any feedback welcome. This took all month, and I'm at the point where I don't know how to improve it. What a fun piece. I've not seen anything like this, like stained, like the whole thing is stained glass. Is this like a piece from your gaming lore is outstanding. Is this a piece from a game or a story or something?
Never seen this. I'm as intrigued as you are.
It's like it reminds me a little bit like like a Sisters of Battle Titan or something, but like a really, really religious one.
Yeah, or like a stained glass. There's probably a stained glass golem in D&D somewhere. There's a golem for like everything. It's like a head maze golem. So.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. But like really, really cool piece. Like, and stained glass is hard. Anyway. But I think like the way you've positioned the colours is rather good. It's a riot, but I think it's quite well balanced. For the most part. Annoyingly, though, I'm going to break your heart now and say the only way to make it really look better is even in stained glass, you still have travel in the colours. Like these are all like flat applications of one colour in each place. So they are going to need some contrast in them. But the good news is it doesn't have to be like super well blended. It doesn't have to be buttery smooth transitions. It just doesn't. If you look at stained glass windows, some of it's quite mottled and quite splotchy. So you can lean into that. So you could just get, a dark version of each color and a light version of each color and go stipple crazy. Pay attention to like the shape of the thing, like where the shadow and where the highlight would be. Don't just go light and dark, randomly do it. But just go around stippling these colours. It's going to take a few hours, mind, yes. But that's what's really going to bump it up a lot because, we see colour transitions in everything all day, every day. So when we see something that's just flat versions of a colour, it doesn't read as well as it could. So you've got to get in there and get some travel in these colours, man, unfortunately. Do have fun, won't you? Sorry. But the only other thing, there's a few tidiness issues, but I'm guessing you're not going to be too bothered about that. But like some of the black is in the green and some of the red is in the black, and general tardiness, blah. That just comes with practice, really. The metals, like I think it's supposed to be gold. I'm not quite sure what paint you've used. But it's a bit flat, like in this central section. Like it's quite good on the chains. I think the camera's doing quite a bit of work, like to bring out these highlights. But like this lantern that's in the right hand it looks a lot better in terms of like shade contrast. So you can see how much better this looks because it's got these brights and it's got these like darks that are then like pretty much black. But then on this like big cathedral headpiece thing, it's all kind of pretty much the same. So if you force some colours around in there to sort of bring out highlights and shadows, I think that really, really help as well. And then down for the base, like I wasn't sure if this was meant to be blood or whether it's supposed to be glowing runes, because it kind of looks a little bit like both. So if it's supposed to be blood, I'd get some make it glossy first, and then get some darker versions of it, and even stipple in some black as well. Again, sorry if this isn't blood, just ignore all this, but it kind of looked a little bit like it was dripping blood. If it's supposed to be glowing runes, then you need to get really, really bright colours in all the cracks. So you want to be going more towards probably the oranges and yellows, and then up to like like a very, very pastel desaturated orange, right up to the very, very highest points of it, and then just soften some of the glazes around where it's a bit darker. So like where it's gone onto the black of the stone as like the glow, some of the transitions are a bit stark, so just try and soften those a little bit. But again, there's quite a lot of work. So I think if you just wanted one thing to focus on to bring it up, it would be to stipple highlights and shadows into the glass panes, and give them a bit of travel. But yeah, fun piece. Thank you very much for submitting it, and I'll now pass you over to Matt.
Yeah. Yeah, I could understand entirely how this would take you all month to do, because like just trying to get all of those little panels there with all their like black separation and like get everything like perfectly solid is like a big ask. I kind of wonder, did you start with a black base coat? Because for these extremely bright, like fluorescent kind of colors that you're using, might have been better off to start with like a white or a cream base coat, or like a gray, and then you could paint the black in afterwards, and that could be a different way. And if you were having trouble with like having to do loads of layers, that would be why. Although it's kind of hard to tell, like everything is extremely well blocked in, and as Jim said, yeah, that's like there's like a style of art. I'm in Maryland now. It's like a bunch of like sculptures that are painted like this, where they have all these kind of motley colors blocked on in flat tones onto them. So if that's what you're going for, it looks really good. But if it is stained glass, then you actually don't want to have flat tones. Like as Jim said, you want it to have like build up towards the edge, or be like darker in the edge or darker on one side or whatever. And also look out for stuff like, say, for example, this like bright green color that you have like on the waist. You have it kind of everywhere because it's very much a symmetrical kind of pattern. But like you have this bright green on the waist, and they have it on the inside of the leg, on the calf, and you're like, well, like that should be darker because it's between the figure's legs, kind of thing. But yeah, it's like in terms of like execution, I think it's really good. For me, the best part I think is like chest. I think it might be partially the shapes, but you do have a little bit, if you zoom in and you look at the orange, there's this kind of run in it that just naturally I think happened, where it kind of like goes to like a yellowy color in like some bits. But like if you had that everywhere else, it would look like pretty good. But it's really hard to do that for all these different shapes, and like there's kind of like nonsense bits in there as well. So yeah, I think you've done a really good job. And like Jim said, like we've never seen anything like this on the channel or just in general. So would love to see more in the future, and hope that was of help to you. And that takes us to the end of the month. Thanks so much to everyone for submitting. Thanks for sticking through to the end of the video. If you have or not. If you want to submit your figure in future, we'll have an event up on the Facebook group in the next couple of days, and just put a picture of your finished work and then a little comment to tell us what you were going for, and we'll see you in the next one.